I wasn't invited to my own graduation. That's how it started, the quiet kind of heartbreak that doesn't make noise, just lingers in your chest like smoke. While other parents were cheering for their children, mine were at home, pretending I didn't exist. My name's Leah Morgan, and 3 years ago, I made a choice that my parents said ruined our family's reputation. I turned down a full scholarship to med school, my father's dream, not mine, and pursued film instead. To them, that was worse than a crime. "We didn't raise you to be a disappointment," my mother had hissed, her voice trembling with a fury that came from embarrassment, not love. When I packed my things, my father's final words burned into me: "If you walk out that door, don't come back." So I didn't. For years, I scraped by, shooting wedding videos, editing for influencers, surviving on instant noodles and stubbornness. Every rejection email, every rent notice, every night I cried into my pillow, those were mine to own. And honestly, I thought I'd made peace with the fact that my parents wanted nothing to do with me. Until last week. I was scrolling through Instagram when I saw it, a post from my mother's account. She and Dad, smiling in front of a movie poster. My movie poster. "So proud of our daughter, the award-winning director." The caption had 1,000 likes. My jaw literally dropped. They'd blocked me years ago. Yet here they were, bragging about me like I was their golden child, sharing interviews I'd done, quoting lines from articles that called me a visionary, even hashtagging #proudparents. For a moment, I didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Because suddenly, it all came rushing back, the years of silence, the humiliation of being disowned, the loneliness. And now they wanted the glory without the guilt. But here's the thing about film directors: we know how to tell stories. And I was about to tell mine. Only this time, it wouldn't be the tearful, forgiving kind. No, this story would make sure everyone saw the truth behind those smiling faces. Because if they wanted fame by association, I'd give them a spotlight so bright it burned. And as I hit record on my camera that night, a quiet thought slipped through my mind, colder than anger: "You taught me how to erase people, Mom and Dad. Now, let's see how you like it." If you ask anyone who knew my family, they'd say we were perfect. The Morgans, polished, poised, practically glowing in Christmas photos. My father, Dr. Andrew Morgan, chief cardiologist. My mother, Diane, the flawless homemaker with a talent for smiling through anything. And me, the obedient daughter who was supposed to become Dr. Leah Morgan, the sequel. But that was just the highlight reel. Looking back, I can see the cuts between the takes, the early red flags that hinted something wasn't right. It started small. When I was 12, I told my mom I wanted to join the school's art club. She laughed and said, "Sweetheart, creativity doesn't pay the bills." Dad didn't even look up from his laptop when he added, "Doctors save lives. Artists waste them." At the time, I thought they were just being strict. Every parent wanted stability for their kid, right? But it wasn't just about careers. It was control. Every choice, from what I wore to who I spent time with, had to be respectable. By 16, the cracks widened. They'd brag about my grades at parties, but if I got an A-, Dad would say, "Your brother would have done better." Funny thing is, I didn't have a brother. He meant the son they wished they'd had. Mom's phone calls were another kind of strange. I'd overhear her whispering to relatives, "Leah's creative. We're working on her attitude." Like I was a project they were trying to fix. Then came senior year. I got accepted into 2 programs, Stanford Med and a smaller but prestigious film academy in New York. I remember sitting at the dinner table, the acceptance letters side by side. My heart said film. Their silence said don't even think about it. Dad finally broke it with that tight, calculated voice of his. "You'll go to Stanford." End of discussion. And when I said I wanted something different, something that made me happy, he looked at me like I'd committed treason. The next few months felt like living in a Cold War. Mom stopped speaking to me unless it was about chores or church. Dad kept repeating phrases like, "You'll thank me later" and "You're too young to know what's best." But the real betrayal didn't come until the night before I left for New York. I found my tuition deposit missing from my savings account. All $3,000 of it. When I confronted my parents, Dad just said, "We used it for something important. You won't need it where you're going." That was the night I realized I wasn't their daughter anymore. I was their disappointment with a deadline. And as I boarded that bus to New York the next morning, I made a silent promise: someday, I'd build a life so bright, they'd have to wear sunglasses to look at me. Success has a funny way of echoing. When my first short film went viral, I thought the noise would finally drown out the past, the pain, the anger, the silence from home. But some ghosts don't stay buried. It started when a journalist from the Chronicle reached out for an interview. She wanted to do a feature on my journey, the disowned daughter who defied the odds. I agreed, thinking it was just another story. But halfway through the interview, she paused and frowned. "Leah," she said carefully, "your parents gave quite a different account." My stomach dropped. "My parents?" She nodded. "Yes, Dr. and Mrs. Morgan. They said they helped finance your early projects, your camera, editing software, even your film school tuition." I felt my throat close up. "They what?" After she left, I opened my laptop, hands trembling, and searched my name. Article after article popped up, press pieces about me. Only, they weren't just about me anymore. There they were. My parents. Smiling for cameras. Quoted as supportive pillars behind my success. They'd turned my entire story, the pain, the disownment, the years of scraping by, into a fairy tale about their unwavering parental belief. But it got worse. I checked the GoFundMe page I'd made years ago to pay for my first documentary camera. It was still live, but someone had edited the description. It now said, "Thanks to my amazing parents for matching every donation." My heart shattered as I scrolled. Their names were attached to my work, my struggle, my art. Even the production company's About section listed them as advisors. I called my old roommate, Jess, who helped me set up the GoFundMe back then. "Did you change the page?" I asked. She hesitated. "No, but, a few months ago, I got an email from your dad's office requesting admin access. I thought you approved it." That was the moment it clicked. They hadn't just disowned me, they'd rewritten me. Every painful year I'd spent trying to prove I didn't need them, they were quietly cashing in on my name, painting themselves as heroes in my story. My breath came in sharp bursts. I wanted to scream, to drive to their house and tear down every fake photo they'd posted. But I didn't. Instead, I opened my video editing software. My fingers hovered over the keyboard as a wild, dangerous calm settled in. I was a filmmaker. And I had every receipt, emails, screenshots, old voice messages, and the one thing they couldn't fake, the truth. They'd tried to turn my life into their PR campaign. So I'd make sure the world saw the director's cut. And this time, they wouldn't get to control the narrative. For 2 days, I didn't leave my apartment. The blinds stayed closed, the phone unanswered. I just sat there, scrolling through every post, every photo, every interview where my parents smiled beside my success like proud saints. The more I looked, the more I felt like I was watching a movie where the villain wins and the hero gets cut from the script. I didn't eat. I didn't cry. I just stared. Then, on the third night, I got a text from my mom. The first one in 3 years. "Noem, we're so proud of you, sweetheart. Would love to have you over for dinner soon, lots of people asking about you." Red heart, that was the spark. A single line that turned the ashes inside me into fire. They hadn't reached out when I was starving, when I was sleeping in editing rooms, when I sold my sketchbook for rent. But now that I had a name, an audience, and a platform, they suddenly remembered I existed. I threw my phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, screen cracked but still glowing. and that cracked reflection staring back at me, eyes red, makeup smudged, heart shattered, was the moment I finally saw it. I wasn't broken. I was done. Done letting them narrate my story. Done shrinking just to make them comfortable. Done pretending their silence hadn't shaped me. They disowned me for my choices, but those same choices built the life they were now trying to claim. I stood up, opened my blinds, and for the first time in years, let the city lights flood in. My reflection glimmered in the window, half in shadow, half in glow. I whispered to it, "You made this, Leah. You survived without them. Now make sure the world knows how." That night, I started digging through my old files, voice notes from arguments, journal entries from when they kicked me out, screenshots of messages they'd sent to universities claiming I'd dropped out. Every lie they'd told became evidence. Every memory they'd erased became a scene. As I pieced everything together on my editing timeline, I realized something powerful. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about reclaiming authorship. They'd turned my pain into their pride. I'd turned their hypocrisy into my art. By sunrise, I had the title for my next film project written on a sticky note stuck to my monitor, "The Daughter They Disowned." And underneath it, in shaky handwriting, based on a true story. The moment I read those words, the fear finally disappeared. The heartbreak was still there, yes, but it had a new name now. Purpose, revenge, I learned, wasn't a single burning moment, it was choreography. A careful sequence of small, unavoidable reveals that left no room for denial. Step 1, collect everything. I spent the next week like a detective. Old emails, bank statements, screenshots of social posts, the GoFundMe logs, everything that showed where their names had been slipped into my life. I dug up voicemails from the year they cut me off and the text where Dad admitted, offhandedly, he'd taken care of the funds. I downloaded archived versions of web pages. I backed up everything in 3 places, my laptop, an encrypted cloud, and a thumb drive hidden in a frozen pizza box. Old habits die hard. Step 2, verify and document. Evidence is useless without context. I annotated every file with dates and short notes, who said what, when, and where. I reached out, carefully, to Jess and a former producer who'd co-signed that early loan. Both agreed to give on-record statements about how my parents had requested credit lines and advisory mentions. I hired a freelance legal consultant to check for libel and defamation risks. Smart artists protect their work. The consultant wouldn't represent me, but she told me how to document consent and avoid crossing legal lines. I recorded everything. Step 3, make art that's also a trap. My plan wasn't a courtroom drama, it was a film. I started crafting a short documentary that intercut my childhood footage with their public posts and the receipts. The structure was deliberate, affectionate memories, then the cut to the posts where my life was repackaged. I added a scene where I played a voicemail of Mom saying, "We don't need her drama," immediately followed by a clip of her telling a reporter how supportive she'd always been. The cognitive dissonance would hit viewers like a punch. Step 4, seed the narrative. I seeded the story in places my parents paid attention to, their social media echo chamber, the medical alumni groups they frequented, the local newspaper that loved human interest pieces. I quietly reached out to the Chronicle reporter again, this time with the receipts and corroborated statements. No screams, no confrontation, just an irresistible packet of truth. Step 5, set the trap. I arranged a private screening for a small circle, old classmates, a few industry friends, and one journalist. The invite was framed as a celebration, exactly the sort of thing my parents would be thrilled to hear about. I knew they'd RSVP. After all, why wouldn't they show up for another opportunity to be seen as proud? As I finalized the cut, the tension felt physical, my fingers trembled over export. Outside, my parents' posts kept glowing, their interviews kept spinning their version of events. They still seemed untouchable, untarnished by the crumbs of truth I was stacking. That only made the plan sharper. When the screening invites went out with a time and place, a small, wicked part of me smiled. The stage was set. The audience would arrive expecting applause. What they'd get was the director's cut of deception. And in the back of my mind, like a metronome counting down to the final beat, I heard a single steady thought: this is the moment they can't edit out. The theater smelled of buttered popcorn and anticipatory breath. I'd chosen a small indie cinema, the perfect place where a projector makes even a whisper feel enormous. The guest list read like a who's who of my life: friends who'd helped me when no one else would, the Chronicle reporter, the freelance consultant, a couple of alumni from Dad's hospital who'd RSVP'd out of curiosity, and, because of course they would, the Morgans. They arrived late, hand in hand, practiced smiles in place like armor. Mom's lipstick was the exact same shade she used for interviews. Dad wore the calm, measured face he used in operating rooms. They sat front row center, unflinching, probably imagining the applause. The lights dimmed. My heart knocked against my ribs like a drum. I pressed play. At first, it lulled them, home videos stitched with sweet piano. Childhood birthdays, Dad teaching me to tie a tie, Mom making pancakes, scenes that mirrored every public post they'd ever used in their PR. The audience softened. My parents relaxed. Then the cuts came. A caption, when supportive becomes a press release. The screen flashed a screenshot of the GoFundMe I'd started, then another screenshot showing the edited description listing them as donors. A voicemail played, Mom's voice, unvarnished, saying, "We don't need her drama," followed immediately by a clip of her telling a reporter, "We always supported Leah." The room's air shifted. You could hear the collective intake of breath. I let each piece breathe. The legal consultants recorded notes. Jess's on-camera recollection of Dad's request for admin access. Bank statements with the missing deposit, highlighted. I watched their faces as the evidence stacked like blocks, impossible to ignore. When the Chronicle reporter's piece appeared on the screen, emails, published quotes, the journalist reading a paragraph aloud, the arrogance on Dad's face cracked. He leaned forward. "That's not," he started, voice thin. A hand went up in the back. The hospital alumnus stood, voice shaking. "As a member of the board, I need to ask, did you disclose this to the alumni? To donors?" A murmur spread. Phones came out. Someone snapped photos. Someone started a live stream. Panic isn't loud at first. It's a small, electric thing that makes people quick and clumsy. Mom's smile faltered. She reached for Dad's hand like a lifeline. He tried to answer questions, but every time he opened his mouth, the projector swallowed him with receipts, text threads, web archives, their own recorded words. The more they protested, the worse it looked. By the time the credits rolled, the screen was flooded not with music but with live notifications, a local ethics hotline pinging in the reporter's inbox, an alumni group thread filling with demands, a commenters' mob already tagging their profiles across platforms. Someone from the hospital called, an urgent, curt tone that made Dad's color drain. They stumbled out afterward, not triumphant but hunted, their practiced smiles gone slack under the harsh, fluorescent lobby lights. Cameras followed. The Chronicle reporter asked one last, simple question into the swarm of phones: "Did you mislead donors about your involvement with Leah's work?" Silence. Then a whisper, no comment. As they were swallowed by flashing phones and murmured accusations, I stood in the doorway, lungs burning with something that wasn't relief so much as a cold satisfaction. The audience pressed around me, some weeping, some cheering quietly. A woman I'd known from high school hugged me so hard I heard a rib crack. And behind the thrum of noise, above it all, I heard the soft sound of their world shifting, the first stones dislodging from a carefully built pedestal. I stepped outside into the night, the city lights like a million tiny projectors. In my pocket, my phone buzzed, a forwarded email with the subject line, "Formal complaint filed." I let it buzz. I let the night hold them for a moment. Then I walked away, knowing the rest, lawsuits, investigations, public ruin, would unfurl without me, like credits rolling on a film I'd already finished directing. 2 months after the screening, the world had changed, just not for me. For the first time, I wasn't the one hiding. My parents were. The hospital quietly removed Dad's name from their ethics board page. The Alumni Foundation revoked his honorary chair position. The glossy medical journals that once printed his lectures published retractions. My mother's social accounts, those curated shrines to family perfection, vanished overnight, replaced with silence. Their friends stopped answering calls. The reporters they once courted were now chasing me. But I didn't gloat. I didn't have to. The truth did all the work for me. The Daughter They Disowned premiered at Sundance 3 weeks later. Standing on that stage, facing a crowd that rose to its feet, I should have felt vindicated. But what I felt instead was freedom. Not revenge. Not rage. Just release. For years, I'd carried the ache of wanting them to see me, to understand me. But now, as the lights hit my face and cameras flashed, I realized I didn't need their approval. I never had. The applause wasn't for their daughter. It was for the woman who survived them. After the film's success, a young woman approached me outside the theater. She said, voice trembling, "My parents disowned me too, because I didn't choose their path. Watching your story made me feel less alone." And that's when it hit me. My story wasn't just mine anymore. It belonged to everyone who'd ever been told they weren't enough. Still, poetic justice has a way of finding symmetry. One night, as I walked home, I passed a small cafe and froze. Through the window, I saw them, my parents. Sitting alone in a corner booth. No camera crew, no crowd, no performative smiles. Just two quiet figures, faces drawn, staring at a TV screen playing my interview. I didn't go in. I didn't need to. Because for the first time, they were watching me, not the version they tried to invent, but the real me. The daughter who built her own name from their rejection. And that was enough. As I walked away, the city lights reflected off a poster for my next project. The tagline read, "Some stories you live through. Others you take back." I smiled. Because that's what I'd done. I'd taken mine back. Clapperboard poetic justice line, they disowned me to protect their reputation, now my name is what defines it. Candle, have you ever been betrayed by the ones who were supposed to love you most? Speech balloon, tell me your story in the comments, I read every one. Red heart, and if you believe truth always finds its way to light, hit subscribe for more stories like this. Because sometimes, revenge isn't destruction. It's becoming everything they said you couldn't be.